Hi, and welcome back. If you're here, hopefully that means you've just watched our author study video, so you have a little bit of an idea of what you can do on the very first week of your book study. So, like I've said in the past, we break our books down into 6 weeks, and I really like to have a plan on what we're going to talk about on each week. Not only does it make you feel more confident, it just gives you a general guide of where to go and it helps keep conversations really flowing in a good direction. So, what do we do then on this second week? Well, this is where we really start to get into having a lot more discussions with the kids and start putting pieces together. Now, one thing to be noted is you do want to make sure that you have already looked through your book and you've seen how many chapters are in that book, and then you've broken it down into the number of weeks that you guys meet. Then you're going to let them know how many weeks they need or how many chapters they need to read per week so that they're coming to book club having made sure to read up to that point. Now, I do encourage that they don't read past that because they have a really hard time not being spoilers and being the one who gets to tell the others what happens before it actually happens. But problem with that is that that definitely messes with your conversations and it doesn't lead to as much guessing and speculation as to what they think might happen, which is a lot of the fun of the story. So let's look a little bit more into what does the actual day of look like and how do we have it broken down. Now, as always, this is what we do. This is what's worked for us. And you can take this and you can kind of just tweak it to whatever works for you. But I've got a general here written down of what it looks like for us. So for the first 10 minutes is a time where the kids come in, they're talking, they're greeting each other, they're having fun, parents are saying hi, and I then pull everybody together. I do a morning welcome. For us, we are a Christian group, so we start with prayer, but you could start yours with whatever type of greeting you like to do. Maybe you want to start it with a riddle, or you want to start it with a quote, or whatever it is that you want to start with. Just bring them in, welcome everybody there. If it's your very first week meeting together, you might want to do some sort of an icebreaker or just introductions, and maybe they might say what their favorite book is and or who their favorite character of all time is or something like that, but somehow just bring the group together. Now, it's going to be depending on the size of your group and how you do your seating arrangements. For us, we have them broken down into tables because we have a somewhat large group, but you may have them sitting on the floor, whatever your space lends to. You might just want to think ahead of time on how you want to do seating arrangements. You might want to place different ages together. That I would actually highly suggest that if you have different ages, that you would put young ones next to older ones, and you're going to actually get a lot better concentration and a lot less side conversations if you do that. So after the 10-minute introduction, then we go on into 10 minutes roughly of talking about what stood out to them the most. Now, this is something that has really been a key to our book club and where we've seen a lot of growth over the years. I've required each student to say at least one thing that has stood out to them from what they've read that week. And if they're really struggling, if they're very shy and they just are having a hard time squeaking anything out, I'll come alongside and I'll help them out and I'll say, well, who do you think your favorite character is so far? Or which character do you not like at this point? And so if I can just get one word out of them, and I can usually get that, then that's a starting point. And just using their voice in front of a group is extremely helpful and it'll help them as time goes on become more comfortable with being a part of the conversation. Now, by going through the group and saying we're going to have every single person give input, that also helps to balance things out so that you don't have one person who is just having, one thing to say after the other and kind of consuming the conversation. You're telling them ahead of time, we're going to split this up and I want to hear from everybody. This would be a really good time for you to also talk about kind of the expectations of the group, that we want to have feedback from each other. A good book club, you're talking back and forth and you're building on ideas, but we want everybody to feel comfortable and not to be shy about, if what they have to say will be laughed at. So really start now on building an atmosphere of support. One way I do this is that any input I get from the kids, I try to somehow respond to it in a positive. I build on what they say. I'll say, "Oh yes, that's true. That reminds me of," and I try to connect it. And I just basically I validate their input, and I just lead by example in that way. So that might be something ahead of time you just want to think about, just different techniques and how you're going to just validate their input, and that's really going to help them learn how to have the confidence to speak in front of the group. So once you've gone through and you've talked about what stood out to each one of them, then on this second week, we're going to go into what we call our story roller coaster. And if you've studied literature at all, then you know that there are storylines. We have story arcs, we have story hills, we have story mountains. There's a lot of different names for it, but we have always just used the story roller coaster because kids think roller coasters are fun and exciting, and it actually lends itself extremely well to explaining and helping them to understand the dynamics of a good story. So, the story roller coaster it is. Now, we spend about 10 minutes talking about that for this first week, and then that we've used up about 30 minutes of our time, half of our book club session. And then for the last 30 minutes, we will have popcorn. That's just our snack of choice. It's worked well and it's cheap. And pretty much nobody has an allergy to popcorn. And then we also will add in an activity at that time. So in future videos, I'm going to go over the activities and helping you to create a system for what you're going to have planned for those activities. But for now, we'll just leave it at those last 30 minutes are snack and activity. Now, I'm going to go into more detail on the story roller coaster. So let me erase this real quick. Now I'm going to show you basically exactly what I show the kids. And I go over this every single week. So there are some kids who have heard this for 8 years. So what ends up happening is they start telling it as you're drawing, they're explaining, they're filling in the blanks, and it really gets cemented in. So the first thing I'd like to do is talk about what makes a good roller coaster. So if your wind stood in line for an hour and then you got on your roller coaster and it was this. Your little cart is on here. Here you are. You're ready for a good time. You're excited. And then this is all that your roller coaster did. Would you be excited? Would that have been a fun ride? Some kids are going to say, yeah, to be ornery. But most kids are going to say, no, that'd be boring. Oh my gosh, no, we wouldn't want to do a roller coaster like that. And so that's how we say a story. We would not want a story that has no bumps in the path, that has no exciting hills and problems that come along the way. So every good story is going to run into problems, and those problems are hills. And we're going to have some surprise turns. And we're going to, I mean, maybe it's going to be something really crazy, and you're going to have a loop in that story that just really threw you off. Or maybe there's some foreshadowing, and something's coming, but you're not sure what it is. And so really it can reflect back to a roller coaster perfectly. So after you've talked about what would make a really boring story, what would make a really boring roller coaster, you can go in and show that most roller coasters are going to start out a little slow. You're getting going. And that right there, where you're just getting going, that is the introduction to your story. This is where your author is going to come in with your setting, the location, the time period, start introducing characters, all of that. It's a little slow. I mean, some authors will go straight into the story, depending on how they do, which makes for a good conversation also. If you draw out that roller coaster, then they're starting out right away, straight up. But most don't do that. Most do a little bit of an introduction. So after you've talked about that, then you can talk about how when you're on that roller coaster, you start to go up your first hill. Click, 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 click. And in your story, that is where your author is starting to build things up. They have this rising action that's happening. You're starting to see like the little bits of a problem that's forming. So once you get going through there, you can talk about how along the way you're going to have some hills, and you're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to have problems, and it's all building up to the ultimate conflict, the ultimate problem of your story. So that's something they want to identify is what is that conflict? What is the big problem that your character is going to run into? Now, when they get to the top, the tippy top of that biggest hill, and when they finally solve that problem, that's going to be the climax of the story. That's that hill that when you get to the top, you're holding your breath because you're seeing the other side and you're about to drop down. But that is the climax of your story. So after they've hit the climax of the story and coming down, they're coming down this everything, the author is now buttoning everything into place. You're descending, the action is just kind of descending at the same time. And this is that final leg of the story. And then you kind of finally come to an end, to a stop. So basically, this is your roller coaster. You're going to work through it each week over the next couple of weeks. And so for this second week of book club, what I really like to do is focus on this part right here. This is your intro. So you're going to go in and draw a little card. Let's do it in a different color. Having a whiteboard is really handy. If you're in a place that has a chalkboard, you could use that. You could get one of the big things of paper, but a whiteboard, if you can have it, and an easel. I mean, we use our whiteboards like crazy. So draw your little card, give them the description, tell them that, this is you're in the cart, you're just getting ready, you're starting out on this story, you're excited, you don't know what this roller coaster has in store for you. But right now, let's talk about what we've encountered so far. We're going to talk about how the author has the setting in place for us. So for your setting, you're going to go through and you're going to talk about where is this story, where's it taking place? What country? You could zoom in a little more and talk about, is it in a forest, or is it in a city, or, a town, like whatever. Get as many details from them as possible for the setting. Look at the time period. See if they have clues yet to tell them what time period this is in. This is really going to help to lock in this idea too of historically different things that have taken place, and it's going to help them in general just with timelines. So talk about what time period this is. You may want to ahead of time, you could look this up if you want to know for sure, like if you haven't been able to quite figure it out. There's always something online someplace that's going to tell you the settings so you can come prepared so that you know the exact time period. That'll just give you a little bit more confidence as you're going into having this conversation. But talk about your characters, talk about their names. You can list them on the board. You can have kids come up and write the names on the board, but talk about who all is going to be a part of this roller coaster. You could even talk about them being in the cart with you. In later weeks, you're going to start talking a lot more about those characters and breaking down who the antagonist and the protagonist is and everything like that. But right now, we're just setting the tone and we're getting them excited about this story that's about to happen. So once you've gone through all of that, that should use up your time for that week. That's going to be roughly that 10 minutes of talk, and it's going to just set the stage. So I have a printable that has a little picture of our storyline. It has just a reminder of, what you're talking about in the very beginning. So I'm going to attach that in the comments, or not the comments. I'm going to attach it in the description. So it'll once again just be a link. If you click on the link, it's going to take you straight to my Teachers Pay Teachers, and it's going to be a download available for you right there that you could just print out and have ready to go. And if you want to start assembling these printables into a booklet, then it can just really be a step-by-step to help you each week of your book club. So once again, I hope these videos are helping. I hope that you like and subscribe and give me some comments in there. Let me know what other questions you have. And if you are getting started, I would just absolutely love to hear how it's going. And I could be just there alongside you, helping you get this started. So thank you once again.